Hello, everyone. Welcome into Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer, and we are live here talking about some of the transfer portal news that has come out, guys. It is fast. It is furious. The SEC is rocking and rolling with roster moves, and not only some of the roster moves of people who have been added, but also some of the bigger things out there, such as people who are being retained to rosters. We're going to get to all that here in just a minute. Of course, there is constant stuff going on, and right here is where you need to be. So make sure you are subscribed. It's absolutely free. Make sure to go ahead and hit that like button while you're in here. Turn on notifications, all of that good stuff, and then throw your comments in here. We'd love to take your comments and address questions as we go throughout this live stream here. But as I said, I am Blayne Gilmer, and we are here to just break down some of the transfer portal stuff. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and take care of a little business here. Guys, we partner with the Believe Network and also through that, betonline.ag. Betonline.ag, the holiday season is off and rolling with NFL in full stride and NBA and NHL hitting mid-season form. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info with up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports, which right now with what's going on with the NIL, what's the difference in pro and amateur sports, really? So BetOnline, might as well bet on all of it, right? And it's not just the big four sports either. BetOnline has info available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time for almost any sport that is played, MMA to international soccer. It's all there. Head to BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts. And guys, where we're going to start is we're going to start with some big news that came out today on some people that are being retained in programs, guys who have decided they're coming back for another year. And that is as big as getting some of these portal additions sometimes. So we're going to go ahead and add this in here. Let me get my background right, make sure it all looks nice and pretty for you guys when we put this up here. But going to go ahead and add in here the first one. Tre Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss, decides to come back for Lane Kiffin. Now, this is huge for many different reasons because Caden Prescorn announced yesterday that he was going to be coming back, which was not expected by a lot of people. But when you're talking about Tre Harris, he was one of the more dynamic receivers in the entire SEC when he was healthy, which was not often during the year. There was injuries throughout. He recovered from surgery, had another little setback later in the year. But when Tre Harris was healthy, he was one of the more dynamic receivers in the SEC and gives Jackson Dart a reliable target. We already knew that Jackson Dart was coming back. But now with number 9, Lane Kiffin went so far to call this guy a difference maker, a game changer, and he truly is that. So now you're going to have in that Ole Miss offense, you're going to have Jackson Dart coming back. You're going to have Quinshaw Judkins back. You're going to have Caden Prescorn back, a talented tight end, and then the number one receiver in Tre Harris back for Ole Miss. And oh, by the way, this has not been, put out as official or anything yet, but Juice Wells, there's a lot of confidence that Juice Wells, the South Carolina transfer, ends up at Ole Miss based on the momentum coming out of his official visit there. Lane Kiffin getting the Juice hoodies made up and everything like that. Lane Kiffin's dog name is Juice. So why would you not want to go there if you're Juice Wells? A lot going on there. And they like to throw the ball around a ton. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Ole Miss. Now, they're a run-first offense, but they will take their shots. And those big play receivers have a ton of room to make plays in Lane Kiffin's offenses. And Tre Harris is a guy who, outside of Kamari Lassiter for Georgia, there's nobody I saw that really just straight up dominated Tre Harris. He had the game where he came off of surgery against Alabama where he was nowhere near 100%, and then had the game against Kamari Lassiter in Georgia where they struggled a little bit on the road. But other than that, Tre Harris had his way, and that is a huge pickup, in my opinion. Not pickup, but a retention of a guy, him not deciding to go pro. He probably could have went pro after this year, but deciding he needs to stay in the Grove, stay there, collect some of the money from the Grove NIL collective, and then going forward, just try to put some stuff on tape to have a great next year here for Ole Miss. So that's huge for Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin and company, guys. Like I said, we're not going to touch on these guys because they haven't made decisions yet. But Juice Wells, very much so trending towards Ole Miss. Walter Nolan taking a visit to Ole Miss this week. Princely Amunamalian, I cannot pronounce that guy's last name. I'll just call him Princely U from Florida. He is a big edge prospect, and he is taking a visit to Ole Miss this weekend. So Lane Kiffin and that NIL fund over there at Ole Miss, not skimping at all. They are really trying to go after some of these top prospects. This is a huge one coming back for Auburn. Another returner, Keionte Scott, announces that he's coming back. This is an understandable move by Keionte Scott because he was injured a lot of this year, didn't get to put maybe his best film forward, but he is a difference maker when he is in the back end of that defense for Auburn, for Hugh Freeze. They were much better. There was a whole lot of better continuity front to back of that defense, better communication, things like that with a leader like Keionte Scott. We saw when he was out for that Texas A&M game, and when he was injured earlier in the year, it really hurt them in terms of what they were able to do secondary wise. And then he's also physical guys coming up and taking care of covering, not only covering, but he's physical in the run game, coming up, cleaning things up. And that is a huge deal for Keionte Scott to come back for Auburn. Now, this is an Auburn defense that played pretty well at times, guys. Towards the end of the year, they started to give up a few things, and they had some struggles against LSU. They got blown out by Arkansas. But you look at a couple of these games, and then we know with the New Mexico State stuff. But when it comes down to some of these big games at home, Jordan-Hare, Auburn, and Georgia, Alabama and Georgia, Auburn stepped up and played pretty good defense. And then Keionte Scott is a guy now, he comes back and gives them even more experience going forward in year 2 under Ron Roberts with Hugh Freeze there on the plane. So I think Keionte Scott, that is a huge retention and a guy that is going to make a difference next year for Auburn, a defense that, like I said, they played pretty good at times, guys. We're flying around to the football and having zero back there. He can also return punts, which why was he not returning that last punt on the Auburn game? Or the Auburn-Alabama game in the Iron Bowl? Who knows? It was another 0, and we know that didn't turn out very well for Auburn. So they'll probably want him back there returning the punts as well. Then this is a new SEC team. You have Oklahoma, and you got Danny Stutsman here. Danny Stutsman, if you don't know, he's like the Boz reincarnated. Okay, this guy, he's basically, he lives the Ric Flair persona. The fast cars, the fur coats, all the lifestyle, that kind of stuff. That is Danny Stutsman here, but he is a first-team All Big 12 guy. He'll be a very talented SEC linebacker. He can fly around. He plays well in space for Brent Venables and company. So his whole message was, hey, SEC, see you soon. So that means he's coming back for Oklahoma and is going to be this first team, this historic team that's going to be the first Oklahoma team that is in the SEC there for the Sooners. Again, Danny Stutsman is a guy who 99 tackles on the year, flies around, can play in space. What I'm most impressed with about Stutsman is, yes, he's got this flashy persona, but he is a blue-collar guy when he is on that football, running to the ball. I mean, just relentless pursuit. And then when he gets there, he arrives with bad intentions, plays very well with his hands. He's able to shed blocks very easily, but gets out in space, redirects receivers physically. I mean, he gets after him, gives them a good punch, and reroutes guys, and then can play the ball as well. So Danny Stutsman is a complete linebacker and somebody that I think could have been a top 2-day pick in the NFL draft, either first, second round type guy. So him coming back for Oklahoma, that is a huge deal. We've already seen Barrett Carter for Clemson elect to come back as well. So there are some high-profile linebackers and some high-profile defensive players that are electing to come back in college football. A lot of this may have to do with NIL and the opportunities that are afforded them and just loving the college lifestyle versus maybe not going to risk it in the NFL until the next year when they absolutely have to. So those are some of the key returners there, guys. Now let's focus our attention on some guys who were, brought in via the transfer portal. We'll do that here in just a second. But we're going to get to some of these here. Nathan Klein. We'll talk about Taylen Green in Arkansas here in just a minute. Thank you for tuning in. Andy Stowe saying this about DR to Nebraska. This is nuts. Nothing's official yet. We'll see what happens there with that. I know he's taking a visit, but that's just him taking a visit. So we'll see. He's still committed to Georgia for the time being, and we'll see how that all goes down. So, and then also Curtis Donaldson in here. Ole Miss is building a playoff team I think he meant 2024 instead of 29-24. That would be a long time from now. I'm not sure I'd be around to see 29-24, but 2024, hey, with it being a 12-team playoff, they would have made it this year in the 12-team playoff. So that would be quite intriguing for Ole Miss. Literally, one of the few teams that has been in I think maybe the only team in the SEC West other than Alabama that's been in the top 10. I think each of the AP top 10 each of the last three seasons. So that's quite the accomplishment for Lane Kiffin and company there in Ole Miss. Now, guys, go ahead and keep throwing your comments in here, asking questions. We'll get to those in just a minute. There was some Andy Stowe's correct. Ryan Williams, a 2025. He was a 2025 wide receiver commit for Alabama, has reclassified to 2024. Auburn is working hard to flip him. Right now, he's with the Crimson Tide. He will not sign until February, but he will be a member of the 2024 class, recruiting class out of high school. Now let's get back to the additions for today. We talked about the retentions, the guys who announced they're coming back. Now let's talk about some additions via the transfer portal. Maybe the biggest one and one of the more impact ones of the entire offseason, in my opinion, is this one in Taylen Green, 6'6", 225-pound quarterback out of Boise State that went into the transfer portal after winning the Mountain West Championship over a very good UNLV team. And I guarantee you that Sam Pittman knew that Taylen Green was a good player because he probably called up Barry Odom and said, hey, tell me about this guy that just ripped y'all's tits over there on the Mountain West Championship game, running all over you. And he said, yeah, he's a good player. And he just absolutely eviscerated a very good UNLV team. Taylen Green, like I said, 6'6", 225 pounds. He looks like the reincarnation of Vince Young when he's out there running the football. Long, lanky strides that you don't think he's moving that fast, but he is running away from you, and he's able to make dynamic plays down the field. He has to get more accurate in the intermediate passing game. I will 100% say that, and that's something that Bobby Petrino is going to have to work with him on. But Bobby Petrino has a background of being able to take both big quarterbacks, look at Ryan Mallett in the past, and also athletic quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson in the past. Well, now he's got one in the same here in Taylen Green. And I do think this is an indication that KJ Jefferson is out. I know he's not officially in the portal. He refuted reports that he was in the portal, all this kind of stuff. KJ Jefferson, if he was still in the picture, they do not sign Taylen Green. I guarantee you Taylen Green doesn't come to Arkansas if he knows that the KJ Jefferson is still going to be there. This is the type of guy that can change the entirety of a football game. You look at Jalen Milroe, who was not a developed passer, right? Not a developed passer. He looked, awful at times early on for Alabama. But when you talk about this guy like Taylen Green, yes, he's got to develop a little bit as a passer, but you cannot teach the athletic ability, the escapability, the game making, the playmaking ability that he has, that he's going to bring with him. And he has done it for a good program in Boise State that is used to winning football games. He took them from struggling in the middle of this year to a great run at the end of the year, showed a lot of leadership, had 4 touchdowns in the Mountain West Championship game, 226 yards passing, over 90 yards rushing in that game, had a tremendous run on a power read play that he just took it up the middle, and then kind of weaved in throughout all the defense and broke it away for a long run. So I like this move by Taylen Green and by Sam Pittman a lot. Listen, Sam Pittman has not missed this offseason. You can say what you want. He lost 5 one-possession games in a span of 6 weeks there at Arkansas this year, and really turned that season kind of sour when it could have been a lot better for Arkansas. But you go out and hire Bobby Petrino. Think what you want about his personal life, his struggles, all that kind of stuff that he's done in the past. Bobby Petrino can coach football. Bobby Petrino can put points on the board, and now you give him an athletic quarterback like Taylen Green. That is going to be a big deal. Now they still have to replace their running back. Rocket Sanders is in the portal. He's headed elsewhere. But when it comes down to it, they have 3 running backs that are coming back, whether it's Rashad Dubinion, Isaiah Augusta, and then also Dominic Johnson, that can be more than serviceable. But I think they'll still be in the portal looking for another guy, maybe Mario Anderson, somebody like that who's leaving South Carolina. But this Taylen Green thing with Isaac Tesla coming back, with Andrew Armstrong coming back, with Isaiah Sategna coming back, I think Bobby Petrino will utilize their strengths around Taylen Green more than Dan Enos did this past offseason for Arkansas. And I think this is a really, really good pick. But like I said, Sam Pittman making all the right moves. He's got Taylen Green now. He got Bobby Petrino as the play caller, and he got Eric Mateos from Baylor as the offensive line coach. And that, I cannot tell you how big of a coup that is. Kirby Smart wanted to get Eric Mateos very, very badly the last time he was looking to make or either this time or when he hired Matt Luke as the offensive line coach. So he is very, very well thought of in the coaching profession, and Eric Mateos will make a difference with that offensive line coach. And the addition of Bobby Petrino will allow Sam Pittman to pair with Eric Mateos, and they will fortify that offensive line for Arkansas. So I'm excited to see. And remember, for Arkansas, no Alabama, no Georgia on the schedule next year. So it couldn't get much better if you're asking for it when you're talking about Arkansas in 2024. Now moving on to Auburn, they add a dynamic receiver in Robert Lewis. Listen, Georgia State was an exciting football team to watch in the Sun Belt this year. They ended up going 6-6, but this is a team that could at times light up the scoreboard, and they were able to have playmakers all over the field, and one of those was Robert Lewis. He's a guy that really came on and had a nice year for them. 70 catches, 877 yards, 12.5 yards of reception, 7 touchdowns. If there is one thing that Auburn needed, they needed dynamic weapons out on the edge, and this is what Peyton Thorne gets. And I say Peyton Thorne because people talk about Auburn going out and getting a quarterback. They've talked about Cam Ward and things like that. I don't see it materializing right now. And here's what I think. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and sometimes it's not always the quarterback's fault. When the wide receivers have guys sticking to them, DB sticking to them like dang paper mache, okay, and just plastered all over them. Well, sometimes you need to get better receivers that can create separation, that can run what the routes that Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery want run in that RPO style of system. Also, I think you're going to see a big jump in Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery working together from year 1 to year 2 next year. And listen, Peyton Thorne proved to be an athletic guy. He proved to be able to throw the football at times, but he really, really surprised people with his legs. He needed help out on the perimeter, and Robert Lewis provides some of that help. A dynamic guy. He's got some speed, makes contested catches. So I like Robert Lewis, and also his ability after the catch is what I like a lot as well. So big pickup for Auburn there when you're talking about Robert Lewis, the transfer from Georgia State to Auburn. So that was definitely a nice pickup for Hugh Freeze there, and he's got many more that he's looking at. Another Georgia State transfer is Marcus Carroll Jr. He ran for over 1,300 yards in the Sun Belt, guys. And I'm telling you, the Sun Belt is a good football league. If you run for 1,300 yards in the Sun Belt and you are able to be a one-cut, decisive, physical runner like Marcus Carroll is, well, what more could you ask for to help replace Cody Schrader? Because I think Cody Schrader probably, I don't know. Does Cody Schrader have eligibility left? If anybody's got that in the thing, then go ahead and put that in there. I think he might be moving on. But if not, you're talking about what a 1-2 punch that would be. I'd have to double check on Cody Schrader's eligibility. You don't even know now with all the COVID years and all that kind of stuff. I know he came from the D2 ranks, but regardless, Marcus Carroll is a guy that can fit well inside of that system there for Missouri. I don't know that he will be as efficient on the outside zone as Cody Schrader is, but who is? I mean, I just don't believe. Yeah, KZ says I don't think Cody Schrader doesn't have any left. I didn't think so. So he'll be moving on, and this is a great replacement. Now, one thing that Georgia State did a lot more, where they were able to be a little bit more successful in the gap scheme. They ran up the middle a little bit more. So when you're talking about Marcus Carroll, he's not a guy that's going to run away from you. He's not going to be a burner that's just going to sprint down the field and go run away from you. But he will get those explosive runs of some people categorize them as 12 or more yards on a run for an explosive run. Some people categorize 16. Some teams categorize 20. So depending on how they do it internally, Marcus Carroll is going to be able to produce those explosive runs. He's played in a good football league. He's going to be able to handle blitz pickup, all those kind of things. I think that you're going to see Marcus Carroll have a big year for that Missouri team next year. They look to be having Brady Cook coming back, Luther Burden that should be coming back. I mean, they've got a ton of guys that is really talented. And I think this is a Missouri team that's, like I said, I've got a video out there looking to make a statement, looking to stand on business, as Eli Drinkwitz says, in that Cotton Bowl versus Ohio State, and let everybody know that, hey, they don't care who's playing for Ohio State, who isn't, who's opting out, who's doing all that. Doesn't matter. They're going to go out there and show that they belong on a national stage, and that they're here to stay, not just somebody that can have success every 5 to 8 years, but they want to be on the top of the top of the list each and every year for not only those kids inside of that St. Louis area, around the state of Missouri, but they want to be a national recruiting base, and then make big pickups in the portal like this. And just this pickup of Marcus Carroll helps even more. And that game with the Cotton Bowl that's coming up on the New Year's Six Bowls, that is going to be big for them as well. So yeah, that's a huge pickup in Marcus Carroll. I like it a lot for Missouri. Jared Brown, the Sun Belt. Once again, the Sun Belt's becoming like the farm league for the SEC. Jared Brown, a receiver out of Coastal Carolina. We know the success that Coastal Carolina had under the coaches at Liberty now for so many years there. You've got guys that just bought into that system and were able to have success on that teal, the Chanticleers going in there and playing. And listen, Jared Brown is a guy who 6 foot, 175 pounds, very versatile. He not only had over 780 yards his junior year receiving, had 740 yards this year receiving, and then also 252 rushing yards on the year. So he can be used in a variety of different ways. And South Carolina desperately needs playmakers, with Juice Wells leaving, with a lot of their other playmakers hitting the portal as well. Now, South Carolina's biggest need, we all know, is the offensive line, and they've got a long way to go to address that. But having a guy like Jared Brown, for whoever the quarterback's going to be, there is rumors out there that if KJ Jefferson actually does enter the portal, that South Carolina could be a destination for him. Well, this kind of move, bringing in a receiver like Jared Brown when they already have Nichols Harbor there, a world-class athlete, that makes it even that much more attractive to try to bring in a quarterback like KJ. But when you're talking about this move, it's good for South Carolina. It's not what I would call an A-plus move, because yes, you've got to address the talent on the outside, but they need to put, if I was South Carolina, I'm putting every NIL blood nickel that I have into fortifying the offensive and defensive lines, because they were atrocious on both this year, and that is what they need to be able to get things done. Andy Stowe said South Carolina's biggest need is a head coach. I tend to agree. He's got a lot to go there. I agree there, Andy. So, but hey, Jared Brown, good pickup, good player. Like I said, very versatile. Not many guys have 2 years where they've had over 150 yards rushing, and they've also had over 750 yards receiving on back-to-back years. So that's a big pickup for South Carolina. Javon Harvey, he's a guy from Old Dominion. Look at that logo on his shirt. The Sun Belt Conference. These guys go from the Sun Belt to the SEC. So he's going to Texas A&M. Didn't have a huge year this year, just over 300 yards receiving. Plays in a good program, though, with Old Dominion, so he'll know how to win, contribute. He's not afraid to go out and block on the perimeter. So not a just hallmark move, nothing that, you're talking about, hey, it's just going to totally change the whole outlook of that team. But it's a guy that Mike Elko can use to play good brand of quality winning football, kind of like some of the guys that he had at Duke who will buy in and will be able to come in and show some toughness, show some leadership, have character. So Javon Harvey, a good pickup for Texas A&M. Then you've got Brien Taylor, a defensive end edge guy from Blayne College, junior college ranks, that is coming in for Florida. Now, Florida badly needed this with Princely Emmanuelian, leaving the program. They badly needed a guy coming in that could help there on the edge. So when you're talking about Brien Taylor, like I said, he is a player that, has good size, is going to provide that relief there with Princely Emmanuelian, which I cannot pronounce. I'm just going to call him Princely U. But this guy is 6'5", 270 pounds, originally from Houston, Texas. He went to Blayne. We all know where Blayne is. It got put on the map. It got put on the map by Cam Newton, who transferred there after he went to Florida. So who would have thought, Cam Newton has the laptop incident, goes to Blayne, ends up at Auburn. Now you got Florida going into Blayne College and taking Brien Taylor out. That helps them on their defense over there. So that is some good news that Florida needed, because Florida has been raided in the transfer portal. Just seen playmakers go. Ricky Pearsall going to the NFL. The only guy they seem to really be coming back, only a couple of guys of some real excitement there. Tre Wilson, Eugene Wilson, whichever one you want to refer to him as. Billy Napier calls him Tre Wilson, and then of course they have Graham Mertz coming back. So that would be interesting there if he's able to produce the way that many teams thought they would. Listen, Georgia was in on him, Auburn, Alabama. I mean, there was lots of people that were looking at him. So this is a big win and a much needed win on the recruiting trail for Billy Napier and company. And then Lewis Moore, he's a guy, guys, this guy had 3 interceptions, a pick 6, had 80-something tackles from his safety position for Indiana, one of Indiana's highest ranked players in terms of his PFF grade over the year, and he goes to Ole Miss. So we talked about Tre Harris coming back. We talked about their leading for Juice Wells right now. We talked about Walter Nolan is making a visit there this weekend. Princely U from Florida, Princely Emmanuelian, is making a visit there this weekend. And now they bring in Lewis Moore, who is a tremendous player on the back end for Indiana, played physical football in a physical conference in the Big Ten. And, now he leaves Indiana, leaves Hoosier territory, and comes and plays in the SIP. Like I said, 3 picks, over 80-something tackles this year. So he's not afraid to come down and play the run. He has more than adequate ball skills and can do things with it once he picks the ball off as well. You saw with that pick 6 there. So Lewis Moore, a big pickup. I think when you're seeing what you're seeing here out of Lane Kiffin is, I think Lane Kiffin now has 2 10-win seasons, and he can point to this success and tell these boosters and tell people, say, hey, we're close. We are close to being where we need to be to compete for the SEC. Give me the resources. Give me what I need to go out and get these guys in the portal, and give me what I need to go out and get some of these high-profile guys. And now with all the experience that Ole Miss has on offense returning, and with some of the key acquisitions, especially if they could pick up, if they could pick up Walter Nolan and Juice Wells, I mean, my goodness, this would be a crazy deal here. So, guys, those are some of the high profile targets that have signed. We got some questions here. Did Blayne mention Bo Allen? I did not mention Bo Allen. We all know that Kentucky last week they brought in Raymond Cottrell, a wide receiver from Texas A&M that had, before he went to Texas A&M, was committed to Georgia for a long time, flipped late to go to Texas A&M. And then now, so he's with the Kentucky Wildcats. Brock Vandagriff, a quarterback from Georgia, he committed to Kentucky. Now there's not been any signing yet. So does that change anything with Bo Allen now transferring back from Georgia Southern to Kentucky? So presumably to compete with Brock Vandagriff. So that changes things a lot there. Who knows what's happening now? You got me thinking here, Andy Stowe. Who knows? Nothing's been signed yet. Nothing's been said they're leaving. What happens if some of this Dylan Raiola stuff is because Beck decides that he's going pro and Brock Vandagriff decides he's not leaving Georgia? I mean, who knows what happens? I mean, it's kind of crazy with all that going on until people show up on campus somewhere. Who knows? Crazy stuff. So, but as of right now, you've got Bo Allen and you've got Brock Vandagriff going to compete for the quarterback job in Kentucky. So I'm going to go through these one more time just for a recap of people who are just getting on here and didn't see. We'll go through these one more time. Like I said, big returners. Tre Harris comes back for Ole Miss. That's huge. They've also added a safety on the other side in Lewis Moore, and they're leading for Juice Wells, another wide receiver. So tremendous weapons for Jackson Dart. You got Keionte Scott coming back, a experienced safety in the back end that can do a lot of different things, return punts as well for Auburn. That's always huge when you have experience in the secondary. Danny Stutsman, just like I said, he's a character. But he's also a guy that's a bona fide leader in the middle of that defense for Brent Venables. And that is big with their first year being in the SEC. 100 tackles this year, plays the ball well in the passing game, so that's huge. Like I said, Taylen Green, that may be the biggest signee or the biggest commitment of any in this offseason. The way that he plays reminds me a lot of how Vince Young played. I'm not saying he's a generational, iconic talent like Vince Young was, maybe one of the greatest in all of college football history, but this guy is dynamic, and he's going to be exciting to watch with Bobby P. Robert Lewis, wide receiver from Georgia State, he commits to Auburn, gives Peyton Thorne a weapon there on the outside, because I don't know that Auburn's going to bring in another quarterback, like I said, and Peyton Thorne needs weapons. We talked about Marcus Carroll going to Missouri, 1,300 yards, a guy to replace Cody Schrader. That's huge. Jared Brown, not exactly what South Carolina needs first and foremost, but they do get a weapon on the outside, a dynamic weapon at that, a versatile guy. Over 150 yards rushing and over 750 yards passing back-to-back years for Coastal Carolina. That is huge. Remember, Javon Harvey, tough, gritty, going to be a guy that buys in, kind of a blue-collar type guy, can make plays down the field, but he's more of, hey, get in there, work hard, be a leader for Mike Elko, bring some toughness, bring some leadership. Javon Harvey from Old Dominion to Texas A&M. Brian Taylor, an edge, 6'5", 270 from Florida, or from Blayne College, from the JUCO ranks. He goes to Florida. That's a much-needed win for Billy Napier. And then Lewis Moore, as I mentioned, he's the safety that committed to Ole Miss. Guys, there's so much going on in the portal. Make sure you are subscribed, like, turn on notifications. We greatly appreciate that. Like it does not go overlooked. We thank you so much for being a part of everything here at Southeastern 14. Remember, we are presented by Bet Online. You guys can help us out tremendously by checking out there. And if you do the first time deposit and you can get a 50% deposit bonus using our promo code believe. Tell everybody about the show. We greatly appreciate it. There will be so many more opportunities to go live here, so turn on notifications as we will be reacting to things all throughout this crazy offseason. Remember, we're not even a third of the way through this portal period, and it is absolutely nuts what's going on. Just a total train wreck. It's like you can't look away from it. It's awful. It's exciting. You can't look away what's going on here with the transfer portal. Some people think it's ruining college football. Some people think it's great. You turn your program around. So a lot to like about it. But like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will catch you guys next time to talk more SEC football right here on Southeastern 14.